Prime Minister Roosevelt Skerrit will meet with the media this morning to officially announce, among other things, the accomplishments of the Dominican Labour Party's first 100 days in office. We have more in this report from Kairifm.
Many had criticized the announcement, claiming that it was a vote-catching tactic when Prime Minister Roosevelt Skerrit announced specific measures that he said would be implemented within the first 100 days of returning to office. The electorate gave the Dominican Labour Party an 18-3 win at the December 18, 2009 general elections, and Prime Minister Skerrit have since been under the microscope. He promised his government would introduce within 100 days the regularization of the minimum pay so that all full-time employees will receive no less than $1,000 every month. He said at the time that this was significant for the hundreds of low-level workers in the government service who take home some ridiculously low wages and salaries. Prime Minister Skerrit said all full-time employees of the government of Dominica, a minimum salary or combined wage of $100 will be received. Prime Minister Skerrit also promised to regularize all positions in the public service with the creation of 100 new positions for nurses, 150 positions for teachers, create 50 new graduate teachers positions at both primary school and secondary schools, and in the process remove disparity in pay between primary and secondary school teachers, and complete the audit on non-established workers and appoint a committee to advise on implementation of these recommendations. He also announced that in the first 100 days of the new term, the new DLP government would reduce port charges by 20%, increase the number of days goods can remain on the port without incurring port charges from 5 to 7 days, and remove all custom duties and port charges on gifts, including barrels valued up to $150. Prime Minister Skerrit also promised to address the unemployment situation in Dominica within the first 100 days by the establishment of an employment agency. He said the agency will help persons find employment, provide an allowance to persons who for more than 3 months have been unable to find a job, and guide job seekers in acquiring skills demanded by the job market through the various skills training programs. The value-added tax was also placed under the 100 days umbrella. Prime Minister Skerrit said within the first 100 days, several items shall be removed from the list of consumer items subjected to the VAT. He promised to also tackle the issue of crime and violence on the island, promising to place more emphasis on the Dominica Police Force in the first 100 days. He said within 100 days of return to office, the DLP expects that the Dominica Police Force will be in a better position to deal with some of the non-traditional modes of crime and antisocial behavior prevalent in the Dominican society. Kairifm News.
Kairifm will bring that press conference live from 10 o'clock this morning. Meantime, leader of the Dominica Freedom Party, Judith Pestina, says while government attempted to make good on some promises, several would not yet off the ground.
When the Prime Minister made a statement during his 2009 election campaign that within 100 days of the taking up of the Labour Party government, a number of measures would have been implemented to reduce the cost of living, to create employment, to create jobs, and to see a number of graduate teachers and nurses appointed. We also understood that the minimum payment salary to public servants would have been no less than $1,000. So now that it is much, longer, 100 days have elapsed, we are still wondering when those things are going to be implemented. For example, the creation of employment and jobs, especially for young people. And this employment agency, which we understood was to be set up, we haven't heard anything about it. And the question is really, how is a stipend going to be paid to people who are unemployed for at least a period of 6 months to start with? Has that money been budgeted? And how are you going to establish what measures are going to be put in place to ensure that employment is created? So these are things which we are concerned about because we have not seen any of those things materializing.
Pestina says that the DFP anticipates a clarification from Prime Minister Skerrit in that regard.
So we are hoping that We will hear soon from the Prime Minister as to how those things are going to be done, because we all live in a country which we know is facing difficulties. We know that Owen Arthur recently was here doing a study on the readiness for CSME by OECS and Belize, and Dominica apparently did not fare well in his findings. We understand that Dominica is one of the most severely handicapped countries, which is constrained because of the lack of human resource, because of the lack of infrastructure, because of the fact that a number of external constraints have taken place. For example, our bananas no longer receive the protection that they did before. We now have to compete with Latin America because the tariffs have been removed, and it's really not very encouraging. So while at home we have been told that something is happening, but really we do not see anything happening to improve the development prospects in the country. And this is something we need to hear from the Prime Minister on as soon as possible, especially as the pledges which were made and which were supposed to have taken effect within 100 days of the coming into office of the Labour Party government have not materialized.
Leader of the Dominica Freedom Party, Judith Pestina. The Dominica Solid Waste Management Corporation and Muta Concept, a recycling firm from California, will on Thursday sign a memorandum of understanding for the recycling of solid waste from Dominica. The agreement will strengthen the corporation's mandate of protecting the environmental integrity of Dominica from the improper disposal of solid waste. Leader of the United Workers' Party, Ron Green, says the courts will decide on the way forward as relates to election petitions. The Dominica Labour Party said it would strike out the petitions filed by the UWP, which questioned the election results in 5 constituencies.
Well, it's in the courts, and the courts will decide, but it's a regular practice and a strategy perhaps to file petitions to strike out, and that is the right of those being petitioned. So Stastafan has done so on behalf of its clients, the Prime Minister and others. So we will await, we have responded, and we will await the court's decision. We expect that the matter will go forward and be heard properly and completely in the court when the court has indicated it will do so, and that is the 18th of June. We fully expect that the petitions which we have filed will be heard in the court when the court has indicated, and that is the 18th of June.
Leader of the United Workers' Party, Ron Green. A 2-day planning consultation on the way forward for the pineapple industry has ended here on Tuesday. The consultation, which commenced at the National Development Foundation of Dominica, was organized to seek ways to identify market opportunities and challenges in developing the Dominica pineapple value chain. The workshop commenced on Monday.
This planning workshop, national planning workshop, has come at a time when, we're beginning to see a break in the weather pattern, so we have some rains. And for us at the ministry, it is also a point in time when we are scratching our heads, trying to do some planning. Typically, this is the time of year when we're engaged in our budget process. But with this drought, I think it has brought with it significant hardships on our farmers, farming communities. And as usual, we are attempting to identify what kind of mitigation strategies we can engage in with limited resources. If only there was money, then it would be so much easier. So this workshop is coming at a time when we are engaged in this process. I think also importantly, this workshop represents for us our own participation in a regional initiative, which is the Kairifm Food Security Project. This project is really looking at the regional food security program. And as some of you may be aware, there was a number of workshops in which 5 countries were selected out of 14 value chains. And of those 5 countries, Dominica happened to be one of them.
Agriculturist Winston Magloire. Haitian President René Préval has pledged to hold elections this year despite the massive difficulties of organizing a successful poll in post-quake Haiti. Mr. Préval is constitutionally barred from seeking a 3rd mandate. His current term expires in February next year, and the presidential elections are expected in December this year. However, no firm date has been announced.